Hello. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome to Buddhist Fellowship again. Before I invite Venerable out, for those who don't know Venerable Damcho, I'll read a short bio. Thank you. This is Venerable's first debut talk at Buddhist Fellowship. Venerable Thubten Damcho is a Buddhist nun residing at Sravasti Abbey, one of the first Tibetan Buddhist training monasteries in the United States. Born and raised in Singapore, she graduated from Princeton University in 2006 and worked as a high school teacher and public policy analyst in Singapore government before returning to the US to take novice ordination in 2013. She writes about her decision to ordain at the Western Buddhist Monastery in the summer of 2017 issue of American Buddhist Women and tells her story in the Straits Times of Singapore. Venerable Damcho's monastic life is rich and varied. She serves as assistant to Sravasti Abbey's founder, author and well-known Buddhist teacher Venerable Thubten Chodron. Her other responsibilities range from translating Chinese texts into English to removing weeds from the Abbey's 300-acre property. Venerable Damcho has given Dhamma talks in Idaho, India, and Singapore, and she helps to guide a weekly meditation class at the Spoken Unitarian Universalist Church. She was the Chinese English interpreter at a full ordination program in Taiwan in 2019 and has studied Tibetan through Maitripa College since 2017. Okay, this is all, and they have some videos that we played during the last talk at Venerable Chodron's talk. Okay, let me invite Venerable. Can you knock, Brother Ao, can you knock on Venerable's door? Thank you. Oh, sorry, can we just do our paying respects to the Triple Gem first? Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Okay, let us invite Venerable. Today's topic will be My Life as a Nun, a Journey of Self-Acceptance. Do you prefer chair or? Okay, let us pay respect to Venerable.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to, good afternoon. It's nice to see some familiar faces. So let's start just by coming back to our breath and taking some time to bring our body and mind into the space so that we let go of whatever we've been doing before this. And we'll just spend a bit of time paying attention to our breath, calming our mind, and I'll set a motivation and begin with the talk. Okay? So take a moment just to check in with your posture, making sure that your spine is straight and well supported. If you are seated in a chair, you can scooch forward slightly so that you are supporting your body with without leaning back into the chair. If you like, you can put your right hand over your left with your thumbs touching and just rest that in your lap. That helps the flow of energy in your body. And you can lower your eyes. Keep a slight smile on your face. And let's spend some moments just feeling what it's like to be in this room. Paying attention to the contact of our feet with the ground, our sit bones with the cushion or the seat we're on. And to help to settle the mind, especially if we've been engaging in all kinds of other activities this morning, to help to bring our mind to the present moment, we're going to place it on a neutral object, which is the breath. And so you can put your attention on the rise and fall of your belly as you breathe, or the in and out sensation of air at your nostrils. So you don't have to do anything special in terms of breathing differently, but just let your body breathe very naturally and put your attention either at your belly or your nostrils. And anytime your mind wanders away, just bring it back very gently to the breath. So let's do that for some time. So it's a hot Sunday afternoon, and Chinese New Year is approaching. And so I'm guessing you're all very busy. Everyone has so many things to do, people to connect with, things on your to-do list to buy, clean your house, start to prepare all kinds of different things. And yet amidst the hundreds and thousands of other things you could be doing right now, here you are at this short talk, here to learn a little something about how the mind works and how to bring about a sense of self-acceptance and what that might look like and what that means in our lives. So take a moment to connect with your motivation that brought you here today. Why you chose to come here amidst everything else you could be doing. And whatever motivation that might be, see if you can expand it. Whether you're looking for maybe answers to a specific question you're holding in your heart, or maybe you're just looking for some immediate peace and quiet. Or maybe you're looking to develop certain qualities in your mind, or to set a broader direction for your life. Whatever it might be, see if you can expand your motivation to think long term. And also beyond yourself. Yeah, think about how cultivating your good qualities or working with your weaknesses brings about benefit to everybody you're connected to. And not only does our mental transformation benefit people we're connected with right now, in our community here and now, but it could also benefit people we'll meet in the future, not just in this life, but also future lives. And so in that way, our small motivation to spend a little bit of time looking inward, not just for peace and happiness in this moment, but if we expand it, it can have very, very powerful results. That by cultivating our good qualities, by understanding the nature of the self, what brings about happiness, what causes suffering, by thinking deeply about these different topics and cultivating our minds, we are doing something that will have a very powerful impact in the long run. So with this kind of vast aspiration in mind, may whatever we share with each other today bring about benefit both for ourselves in the short term and also the long term, and also for the benefit of all the beings that we come into connection with for a very long time to come. So you can gently open your eyes and come on back into the space. Yeah, first I want to say a big thank you to Buddhist Fellowship for making time in your schedule to invite me to come and talk to everyone about my practice, and hopefully it will be of some benefit to yours as well. I know it's been a very full schedule here of retreats and lots of talks, but there seems to be no end to your hunger for the Dharma, and that's something really beautiful, creating that space not just for yourself to practice, but for others to benefit as well. So the topic of today's little sharing is about my journey as a monastic, but also how it relates to self-acceptance. Yeah, and that's been something that's been a part of my practice since the get-go. This whole thing about what is self-acceptance and how does it relate to spiritual practice? Yeah, why does it matter at all? So that's something I'd like to explore and reflect on today. But first, what has been sitting with me this whole teaching tour? Yeah, so I came here to Singapore with Venerable Chodron. She's my teacher, and we both live at Sravasti Abbey. It's located on the west coast of the US, and the monastery was established in 2003. And I moved there 10 years ago, so I'm coming to year 10 in ordination right now. So she's been giving a series of talks. And one of the talks that she gave was at the Singapore Buddhist Mission for the Youths, who asked really excellent questions. And one of the questions that really stuck with me was one of the young men, someone far in the back, I couldn't see his face, he asked, how do we cherish our mental health? Yeah. And Venerable's response to that was, well, first of all, you should check up on what kinds of standards you set for yourself. She said, don't set standards that are just unrealistic or too high for yourself to achieve. She said, because once you do that, then nothing is ever good enough. Right? Once you have in mind some kind of ideal, like, oh, I must achieve X, Y, Z, then I'm a good person, or then I'm worthwhile, or then I will be happy, then I will be successful. Then she pointed out that even if you come close, right, or you do something that's quite good, but it's just not that standard you set in your own mind, as long as it falls short, then you're going to be miserable, right? Yeah? Because you've already set this bar, that's it. That's your definition of happiness. It's these criteria. So even if you do something that is beneficial or fairly good, it just falls short by a bit. But still, oh, not good enough. Yeah, I just am not number one. I'm number two. So your mind can't see anything that was good. It's just focused on that little gap, that fell short. Yeah. So that was her answer to this question of how to have good mental health. To start by not setting those expectations that are unrealistic. She didn't say don't have any expectations. She said don't set that bar, because you set yourself up to never be good enough, right? And also, even if you do achieve that, do you think that brings everlasting happiness? Yeah, or does it come with its own new set of problems? Right, sometimes, right? You achieve whatever it is, you got your goal of you worked really hard and you want this promotion and you got it. Then what comes with that? Longer working hours, right? Or now you have to struggle with keeping that standard that you set. Because again, you set this standard. Once you fall short, not good enough, right? So now you have to maintain or do even better, yeah? And so she was pointing out this is actually creating a lot of misery for ourselves. And maybe I was kind of surprised by that answer. I don't know why. Maybe I expected her to say something like, oh, to cherish your mental health, what must you do? Meditate, lor, right? Or, spend time having a daily practice, calm your mind, be peaceful. No, the first thing she went to was check up on whether the kinds of expectations you're setting for yourself. And I think that very much relates to how we see ourselves, or how we want people to see us. Right? So, so that's really been something I've been thinking about. What happens once you set that bar? And so I don't know about you, but I have been setting that bar for myself since I don't know, I could think, I guess, or maybe that's the nature of the Singapore school system, right? Or the way I experienced it, right? There's a bar. Yeah, oh, if you get this grade, you are in this class, and it means this thing about you. Yeah, if you are in this stream, it means this thing about you. Yeah, and I just bought into that. You don't have any other idea of how to see yourself, right? So yeah, you just jump right in. So, okay, I must set this standard, I must achieve it, and it means this about me. And for sure, it took me a long time to question that, right? Like, really? Am I my grades? Am I the class that I'm in? Is that what defines me as a human being? And so those were all those questions I had when I was growing up, you know, like, yeah. How is it that 2 numbers determines my happiness or unhappiness, you know? It's just 2 numbers on a piece of paper, right? Yeah, you work very hard for a test. What is it? Okay, what is the grade for A1 now? What is it? Do people remember? No? Is it, what, 75? Is it, or something like that? Right? And then you have one number changes, 75. Yes, A1, very good. One number changes, 74. A2, fail, miserable. Right? It's just a number on a piece of paper, but we impute so much onto that. Yeah, all these expectations, all these stories, everything we tell ourselves, you know, one number changed and I have failed. I'm somehow less worthwhile. Yeah. So I think it's very helpful to start checking up on these things that we tell ourselves about ourselves, right? What I think I should be, what I'm supposed to achieve, what numbers on a piece of paper mean about me as a human being, or what it means about you as a human being, right? Because how we judge ourselves is what we bring into our interactions with others, correct? Yeah, because if I'm judging myself, say, based on my results, yeah, then for sure I'm looking at other people that way, right? Like, oh, how come they have better grades than me? Is it because they're smarter? Did they find the right tuition teacher? Is it because their parents are taking them to enrichment class, right? So we start, you know, how do I become like that person? Or oh, they didn't do so well, so I don't want to be like them. Yeah, oh, are they mixing with the wrong crowd? Whatever it is, yeah, our value system is built around all these expectations, whether it's from our family, society, you know, that it becomes ingrained in our minds. So I think that's very much what self-acceptance is about. It's about finding a way to see yourself realistically instead of through the lens of all these different social expectations, and setting a bar that's impossible. Actually, I'm kind of amazed that people came to a talk about self-acceptance. I feel like it's a very not sexy word. I don't know how else to put it, as in, sometimes people are like, huh? Just accept yourself. Isn't that like resignation, right? You're just like giving up, you know, okay, lor, I'm angry all the time. I accept myself. I accept I'm angry. Like that, lor, cannot. So I think that's a misunderstanding of the term, right? It's like we go to 2 extremes, right? Either we're like, have an overinflated view of what we think we should be, right? Or we are totally self-deprecating. Yeah. I would call that kind of mind self-deprecation. That's why I would label resignation, you know, the kind of mind that's just discouraged. That's like, oh, I'm just not good enough. Yeah. Oh, I just can't do better. Oh, you know, I have these faults. Yeah. So that is not self-acceptance either. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, self-acceptance is not beating up on ourselves or giving up on ourselves. It's something in the middle of those 2 spectrums, you know. A mind that is able to recognize, okay, I have these good qualities, I have this potential, and I also have these weaknesses or things I need to work on, and I know in a fairly balanced way how to work with that. Yeah. And I think it's a very difficult state of mind to achieve, I think, if I can use that term. I mean, and it's constantly changing, right? Because I don't know about you, but I'm always yo-yoing between the 2, you know? Either like, oh, I expect all this, and then I didn't achieve my expectation, lousy. Yeah. And so a big part of my spiritual practice has actually been trying to come to a more balanced, realistic view of myself. And that's on the very basic day-to-day life level. Right? And it's important for our mental health. Yeah? Whether or not you practice the Dharma, in terms of, you know, practicing what the Buddha taught, I think on the basic secular day-to-day life mental happiness level, checking up on what we're saying to ourselves and whether or not it's realistic or beneficial is so important for our mental health. Yeah? I don't know. That's what really got me hooked on the Buddhist path. Years ago, I met the Dharma in the US at college when I was very stressed out. Yeah. And again, what's the cause of stress? Setting that bar, right? It's like, oh, okay, there are certain expectations. I went overseas on a scholarship. So if you're on a scholarship, you must maintain a certain level of grades. Yeah. Anything less, the government will send you a letter telling you, hello, we've signed a contract. It's like, okay. Yeah, so that's in my mind. Oh, you got to maintain this. Yeah. And, so school was going okay. And then I got into a relationship, and I expected it to go very well, right? You fall in love. Yeah? It's your first love. Yeah, it's supposed to go well. This is the perfect person. And isn't it the same for all of us? Do you have criteria of your perfect mate, the person you want to meet? Or am I the only one who did that? Cannot be right. Okay, good. I'm safe, yeah? Like, I don't know, play jazz piano. I had very useful criteria like this, yeah? Like, I was 18, what can I say? Plays the piano a certain way, interested in the arts. Yeah, so maybe for you it's athletic, or enjoys reading literature by some writer, loves movies by, whatever it is. Yeah, you set up this ideal, and and then you go around searching for someone like that, right? You try and style yourself a certain way, hang out with groups with those people, hoping to meet. Venerable Chodron says that's your Buddha boy, yeah, or Buddha girl, yeah, the ideal, the magic person who's going to bring all the happiness in the world to you. So I had these very specific criteria, and I met someone who met that criteria. It's why I thought, like, wow, plays the piano well, and wow. Give it 3 months, and then what happens? Huh? Yes, the cello string burst, yeah? Yes, that's how attachment works, right? You build up this whole image, this impossible ideal. They're always going to make me happy. This person is always going to be kind. They're always going to support me. And then someday, the bubble bursts, and all the bubble gum, where does it go? Pia! Right here, and it's stuck in your hair. Thankfully, I have no hair, and you're spending forever trying to get it out. Yeah, so that's pretty much what happened. I'm guessing I'm not the only one who's had their heart broken like that. Yeah, and it was all of it's coming from my mind. A lot of it, right? I've built up this person, and they turn out to be not who I expect them to be. Oh, they get angry. Oh, they yell at me. Wow, they say some things that really hurt my feelings. Now what? Yeah, so back then I didn't have any kind of spiritual practice. I was alone overseas, and you cry, talk to your friends, but I was really quite miserable. And then it turned out there was a meditation group on campus, and they, the group would sit every week and they would recite the Heart Sutra and meditate. So I joined that group, and I found it brought me some peace and calm. And it really helped to calm down my anxiety and my fear and my nervousness. And in fact, it helped me to be aware of it. So I don't know about you, but does everyone here meditate? Yeah? Everyone does? Good. Yeah. Was it easy at the start? Okay. No. Good. Everyone's being honest. Yeah, so this is to encourage the new meditators. I remember at the very beginning, I could not sit for more than 3 minutes, I think. I was just so buzzed and wired and my hyper-stressed kind of life. Yeah, so ask me to sit down for 3 minutes, like, yeah, fall asleep. Or I keep checking the clock. Is it 5 minutes? Huh? Still not 5 minutes. Okay, sit. Yeah. But what I found over time was it was having an impact on my life. It was helping me to calm down, and I started to have some space before I reacted to people. Yeah. But most importantly, when I went on my first retreat, and that was with the same group at college, we went on a 3-day beginners retreat. This was with the Dharma Drum group. And so we just went and we were silent that whole time. For the first time, I heard the kind of self-talk that was running in my mind. Yeah. Some people here have been to retreat recently, yeah? So I don't know if you heard that kind, or you learned something about your mind. Yeah, it's good, no matter what, the object might be focus on your breath or focus on metta, yeah, but how many of you actually spend the whole retreat 100% focus on your breath? No, yeah, and that's not a realistic expectation. Yeah. As we practice, we realize, wow, this is the object, but my mind keeps going to something else. But that process, just noticing that in and of itself, is such a rich resource. You start to learn about how your mind works, right? You're like, oh, my mind is constantly distracted to what? Yeah, what am I still holding on to from the past? Or what kinds of aspirations am I constantly trying to build up in the future? And what is that telling me about what's going on internally? So usually we're so focused on external things, but for the first time we quiet down and you check up, like, what's actually going on? And then, because if you go to a retreat where they give teachings, then you start to learn, how do I work with these different thoughts? Are they realistic? Are they beneficial? Are they helping me to feel happy? Or are they bringing pain and suffering? Yeah. So for me, that very first retreat I realized, wow, I have a lot of anger inside. And a lot of it was directed at myself. A lot of it was self-hatred. Not good enough. Yeah? Oh, you have failed. You have failed as a girlfriend. You have failed as a daughter. You have failed as a student. It was on and on and on. And I thought, wow. I was just so... It was the first time I tuned into that, I thought, wow, why do I have these thoughts running all the time? Yeah? And I didn't think so much about it at that time. But I think now looking back, I realized, it's again... setting these high expectations for myself, right? Like, oh, must achieve this, otherwise fail. Yeah. And that's not at all helpful or realistic. Yeah. So yeah, tuning into that, listening to that, and realizing, oh, I don't have to keep talking to myself like that. There are other ways to be. Yeah. So that was one very helpful insight. But you go on retreat, right? You learn a little bit about your mind, yeah? Then you come out of retreat, then what happens? Yeah, boing! Yeah, all the old habits come back, yeah? So for a little moment, I'm like, oh, I talk like this to myself. Maybe I should do something about that. Then my old habit comes up, oh, but if you don't beat yourself up, how will you motivate yourself? Yeah, does anyone have those thoughts? Yeah, if I don't beat myself up, I will become a lazy slob. Yeah? If I don't scold myself all the time, I'm not going to change or improve. Yeah? When you have such thoughts, you should write them down and then look at them and ask yourself, what is the logic of that? Because you look at children, right? If you beat them and you scold them, will they actually grow and improve? Some people are nodding. No? No, maybe short term, right? Yeah, someone does something out of fear. Right? Or just to make you happy in that moment. But in the long term, there's no actual genuine growth coming from that person's side, right? Or another analogy, what helped me a lot was this analogy of how to tame a horse. Right? If you beat the horse, yeah, like, no, you must, and you discipline the horse that way, you beat it, you put blinders on it, and you force it to only do a certain thing. I mean, it's a fight all the way, right? You have to fight the horse, it's a miserable experience. Yeah, versus if you're kind to the horse, yeah, you feed it sugar, you speak kindly to it. Yeah, which is the more helpful approach? Yeah, so these are things we can observe or we know intellectually, but somehow when it comes to relating to yourself, somehow, I don't know about you, but I find it difficult, yeah, to be kind to myself. Yeah, I know that if I'm harsh and I say unkind things or have these kinds of unrealistic expectations, do this, I'm not making myself happy and I'm not actually going to grow. I'm just feeding my anger. Yeah, it's anger. It's anger directed inward, just not outward. Yeah, it's internalized. But I still do it as a habit, right? So it's taken me a long time to just recognize that and to see, talking to myself like this is not helpful. Instead, I should try and talk to myself the way I would talk to a friend. Yeah, but so many of us find it so much easier to be kind to a friend. No, right? You see your friend having a problem, and you listen to them, or you tell them, oh, you should, or you've really tried your best. Yeah, I really see what you've put in as in terms of effort, rejoice in the good things you've done. Yeah, it's so easy to say that to someone else, but sometimes saying that to yourself, you've tried your best. I know it, you've really tried your best. Rejoice. Yeah, and next time you'll have another chance, you can do better. Yeah, just learning to transform that self-talk, and it was a big practice for me. And I think that's why the practice of metta, or loving kindness, starts with, in the Theravada tradition, it starts with yourself, right? So that's how I learned it anyway, initially, to start with wishing myself to be well and happy. Yeah. And thinking very deeply, what does that mean? What does happiness actually mean? Is it wishing myself to have the perfect boyfriend who plays jazz piano? Nope, that didn't bring happiness. Is it about wishing for myself to get perfect grades all the time and win all the prizes that I can win? I did some of that. Okay, and then what? And that didn't bring happiness. So I will say that was a big part of also why I started to explore Buddhism and more of a spiritual path. Because being an extreme overachiever, I had my to-do list, and then by 22, I had pushed myself into achieving all of it. And I remember being at graduation, I had won a lot of prizes, and I wasn't happy. That was a huge shock. It's like, oh, I did this. I fulfilled some of my parents' expectations, I think. Check, check, check. But I had my own aspirations too, yeah? Like, oh, I want to do certain things with my thesis. Was very successful. Tick, tick, tick. Then, all these things I expected to feel, I did not. Yeah, I went to all these prize-giving ceremonies, and I felt like I was a zombie walking through my own life. Like, okay, now what? Yeah. Oh, you just have to repeat it. Do the same again. Set another goal. Set a higher one. Let's go. Yeah, I just did not feel that at all. And so maybe that was what really got me asking, like, if the source of happiness is not outside, if it's not in those things, where does it come from? And so Buddhism seemed to present an interesting path to look at, all these teachings are saying the source of happiness is coming from my mind? Really? Yeah. And even more amazing to me was to see practitioners like a lot of the Tibetan monastics who were incarcerated by the Chinese when the Chinese communists took over Tibet, and some of them were put in prison cells and tortured. They were able to have a happy mind. Many of them used that time to do retreat. Yeah, or there was one person who, he finally escaped, and when he connected with His Holiness the Dalai Lama asked him, what was your greatest fear when you were in the prison? And he said, of losing compassion for my perpetrator, for the people who are torturing me. And I thought, wow. This is someone who, regardless of the circumstances, was able to be kind or loving or compassionate. So that really got me thinking about, okay, there's something here I'm interested in and I want to learn about. Yeah, if happiness is not out there, if it's something I can create in my own mind, then I'm very curious how that works. Yeah. So I would say that's been an ongoing journey. Yeah. And I got interested in this whole topic of self-acceptance too, because even shortly after I ordained, very early, sometimes people think, okay, you ordain, you shave your hair, whatever, and it's like happily ever after, right? Is it? Do you think that? How come none of you ordain? No. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, okay. So you ordain, you take precepts, and then you bring the same mind you had to the monastery. Yeah, I come to the monastery and I have the same mind that's still setting expectations. Oh, now you must be a good nun. Yeah, you cannot break your precepts. Must be perfect. Wake up super early, sleep the latest, study very hard, do everything perfectly. So miserable. I'm so lonely, right? Same old cycle, But again, I was like, but now, because I've practiced the Dharma, I can see, oh, I am creating this mess for myself all over again. Yeah, the external form changed, but the mind is still doing the same old trip. Yeah, but now I'm in a monastery and I have a teacher and I have a community, people who are able to help me to work with that, and I'm able to talk about it. So I think that's one really important thing in our Dharma practice, and especially if we're with Dharma friends, to be able to share these things. Yeah, or sometimes if you have courage to point them out for each other. Yeah, like someone you know very well, right? It's like, oh, you're doing that again to yourself. No, where God, I'm not. Yeah, but if there's enough trust, right? It's like, oh yeah, this person's trying to help me, So very often, so that's why Venerable Chodron created what is called a High Achievers Neurotic Society out of her great compassion. Yeah, it's for people like me. And her, she's the president. Okay, so, and then I think I'm the secretary, I'm not sure. And there are other people too. The funniest thing is then there are people who are like, hey, how come I am not in the High Achievers Neurotic Society? They're like, am I not high achieving enough? Yeah, so anyway, it's kind of a joke, but it's a sad joke too, because it came about because we see the kind of mental pain it causes. Yeah, actually the real backstory of this society was when actually someone sent an article to her about a high school in California where all the young people were on track to go to Stanford. So Stanford is their bar. Anything less than Stanford is total failure. Yeah, you get into a different school, you go into New York University, but it's not Stanford, so fail. I mean, when you think about this, it's like totally illogical, right? Like, you've just you've totally fixated on this one thing as your idea of success, and anything less is just not good enough. Yeah. So anyway, so these young people are all fixated. It's that kind of school, it's a through train to Stanford or whatever, and then you go to Silicon Valley and you live happily ever after. Well, what happened was that school was having a spate of teenage suicides. A lot of young people there were killing themselves, and the parents didn't know what to do. They were devastated. Yeah? They've given the child everything they could ask for, all the good conditions you can imagine, and yet they're completely miserable. So someone sent her that article, and we both read it, and we thought, wow, so this is the outcome of that kind of high achieving mind that just doesn't have a realistic view of what your own strengths and weaknesses are and how to speak to yourself kindly. I mean, that's the scary piece, yeah? It's not just about our happiness day to day. If you speak to yourself harshly, repeatedly, day in, day out, again and again, and you believe those thoughts, then over time, it wears down on your mental health. And not only that, it can have results like that. You decide that maybe ending your life is a way out, to end that misery. And that's just not true, right? So it was so sad to read that article. So her way of turning that was to turn it into our High Achievers Neurotic Society. So, speak about it. Yeah, bring awareness to it. Talk about what you're going through, and see if you can bring some humor into the situation. Yeah, and we call it the Neurotic Society. Yeah, it's not high achievers alone, we're trying to see the mind that gets us into that painful loop. Yeah, so till today, I have not managed to resign from the society. I think I still do things where Venerable's like, I think you're well done. You have again been part of the High Achiever Society. I'm like, oh dear, I've pushed too hard again. Pushed myself to the point of exhaustion and collapsed, and have to regroup. Yeah. So yes, so it's a slow process. We recognize these things we're working with, but the point is to keep working on them and to see the actual realistic improvements in yourself and rejoice. Yeah. So what are some things that can help us with coming to a realistic point of view? One of the tips Venerable does, especially if you struggle with a lot of negative self-talk, is to tell us to write it all down. That sounds very scary, right? It's like these thoughts are running in your mind and they really sound like they're real and very painful. Well, she said, write them down. And then when you have some space, look at them and you ask yourself, are they true or not? Really ask yourself, am I really worthless because I made one mistake? And if it's not true, why do I keep lying to myself in this way? Yeah. And two, you can rewrite those thoughts. Right? Rewrite them, reframe them into kind ways to relate to yourself. Yeah? So that's how we've been, that's one level on which I've been working on this whole issue of self-acceptance, just on the kind of the day-to-day life happiness kind of level. But as I've practiced more, I think a lot of self-acceptance, especially when it comes to Buddhist practice, is related to what I call the 4 close placements of mindfulness, or the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Are people familiar with those? Yeah, some people are. Yeah, there's a whole sutta on it. And then now I think it gets really interesting, where basically the Buddha taught that to gain insight into the nature of who we are, what is this self, or what is it not? Yeah, we can pay attention to our body, our feelings, our mind, and then phenomena. Yeah. So that was the very first retreat that I sat at the Abbey as a lay trainee, where we spent all 3 months in silence. When we go back now, we'll be 3 months in silence, and we just focus on that. What is this body? Yeah. And then it gets really interesting, right? So I don't know about you, but I have all kinds of views about my body and how it should be, right? When I got up this morning, I should be healthy, right? I think I don't know, at my age, I take it for granted. I get up, I can walk, yeah? I put my feet where they are, and yeah, I have good balance, yeah? I shouldn't be in pain, right? I'm hungry, okay, I eat. It shouldn't come out the other way. Unfortunately, I just came back from India. It is coming out the other way, sorry, but it should stop when I want it to stop, yeah? Thankfully, it stopped. I'm here, right? But this body should be under my control, yeah? And then when it isn't, what happens? I get upset, yeah? Why are you not listening to me? Why are you getting sick? Why do you bulge where you shouldn't bulge? Yeah? Do you spend a lot of time working out? Or maybe this crowd, not really, I don't know. But you look at all the time people spend, right? Trying to make something, one part of the body small and the other part of the body big, right? And it's never good enough. You have this ideal, yeah? Oh, I'm supposed to look that way. One thing I read in the news that really surprised me over COVID, I don't know if this happened in Singapore, but I think in Korea, people were paying personal trainers a lot of money to work out really hard during COVID to attain their ideal body, and they would starve themselves and pay hundreds of dollars just to take photos of their perfect body. Yeah. Right? I don't know, I read this in the Straits Times, that there was this whole phenomenon. I don't know, people had a lot of time during COVID, yeah? So what do? You spend time working on your perfect body so that you can take 2 photographs, or I don't know how many photographs, and keep it forever. And then the rest of the time, what happens? You can just sag, I guess. Get fat again, relax, don't care, but you have those photos, yeah, of your perfect body when you starved yourself for 2 weeks and went to the gym every day, yeah? How is that going to make you happy? I think you just look at those photos and then you feel like you're never good enough, right? You'll never be that body again. Yeah. So just think about that. All the things we expect of this body, all the things that we do to it, but it's actually aging. It gets sick. And honestly, if you look at it, everything that comes out from the different orifices is not clean. Yeah. So that's what that mindfulness of the body is about, helping us to gain a realistic view of the body so that we're not expecting of it what it can't do and then getting very upset, yeah? Or spending all our time, instead of doing something more fruitful that has a more benefit to ourselves and the world, instead of doing that, we spend all our time doing something impossible, trying to be younger and more beautiful all the time, right? Facial peel, pull everything back, go to the gym, yeah, tan yourself, and then it disappears like that, right? But we still do it, thinking it will bring some happiness. Yeah, so that's what this, first of all, accepting the body for what it is. That is part of our practice of self-acceptance. And it becomes very helpful, because I don't know about you, but none of us are getting younger in this room, correct? Is anyone here? Your age is somehow reversing itself. Yeah, you're getting less wrinkly, you're getting more energetic, and everything is working better by the day. No, yeah. All of us are aging moment by moment, and that's realistic, right? To know, okay, at some point, I'm going to not be able to get out of bed, possibly, or I'm going to fall when I don't expect it. something is going to hurt. Yeah? It doesn't happen overnight, yeah, but it's that slow process, right? And if we expect this body to get younger and stronger constantly, we're just setting ourselves up for misery. Yeah. So that's how that first piece of accepting what this body is. Yeah. Then we don't build up all this kind of fantasy or waste our time really doing what's not necessary, but we just do what's helpful to maintain our health and to support us in doing what's beneficial. Yeah. So that's one, accepting the body. And next, also mindfulness of feeling. Yeah. So now we come to pay attention to pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, both on a worldly level and on a spiritual level, and how that affects our life. Yeah. So one exercise Venerable Chodron gets us to do, in retreat especially, and that's something you can do in your life too, is to pay attention to, what are the different feelings that arise for you throughout the day, and how does that begin from the moment you wake up? Yeah. So I don't know. When you wake up in the morning, do you immediately feel pleasant feeling? No? How many people do actually wake up feeling pleasant? Or not sure, depends, day to day. Yeah. Some do, with a happy, peaceful mind. That's good. Yeah. Then you can trace back, what were the causes the night before, right? And sometimes you wake up and it's like, oh, yeah. And your first thought is, I want some tea, yeah, or I want coffee. Right? I want to get out of bed and I want some pleasure. Yeah? So just check up if that's what gets you out of bed. Oh, I want to shower. Oh, I want to check my phone. Oh, is there this appointment happening today? Now pay attention to the first thoughts you have in the morning. And are they driven by wanting some pleasure? Yeah? So even at the monastery, we can see that, I'll wake up like, oh, I'm late. Oh dear, I better get to meditation on time. Or sometimes I have the thought, I want tea. I just want something good to drink, something warm. It's very cold. Yeah? So just even the first 5 minutes of waking up is all about pleasant, unpleasant, neutral feelings. And that's driving my whole day. I want this next. I want to feel good. Yeah? I want to get up. I want to drink tea. I want to shower. I want to go to the hall. I want the cushion to be comfortable. I want. Right? Or either that or... we have to go to the hall again. I'm going to stay in bed for 5 more minutes. Right? Right? So just about, unpleasant feeling and how that's shaping my whole morning. So actually one really important piece of our training, it's actually really simple, is to train ourselves to wake up with a good motivation. And that's something we practice at the Abbey every morning. We try and train ourselves to wake up and think, the first thought, today, may I not harm anyone with my body, speech, or mind. That's the most important thing. I may have a 20-item to-do list, but you know what? Before I get to it, may I not harm anyone or any living creature with my body, speech, or mind. And then I train the second thought, may I be of benefit to others with my body, speech, and mind. And then the third thought, may I generate bodhicitta. Yeah, may I have the idea that I have the potential to become a fully awakened Buddha. Yeah. Or, I have the potential to develop my good qualities, and that's something I can do throughout the day. Yeah. May that be my aspiration for my day. And we train in that to try and wake up with that every morning, and then go about the day. So give that a try, so you can see if these 3 motivations work for you, or you might have motivations that resonate with your own heart. So see, instead of waking up and thinking, oh no, I need to get to work, or oh no, I'm late, or I want this thing, are they selling mee siam downstairs, or whatever it is, your first thought is instead a beneficial motivation. Yeah. Oh, can be very simple, right? Oh, today may I be kind to my co-workers. Yeah? First thought. Oh, I'm going to get up and I'm going to see my kids. May I be kind to my children. Yeah, that's the motivation I want to wake up with. And then just see how it shapes your day. Yeah. So that's another way where, we're mindful of our feelings, how we respond to what's painful, what's unpleasant, or what's neutral, and pleasant, painful, pleasant, neutral, and how that affects our behavior. Yeah. And recognizing that gives us some control or some space in terms of how we want to respond to these different feelings. Instead of being driven by them, we are able to set a different motivation. Yeah, so whether I'm in pain, whether I'm having a pleasant experience, whether it's a neutral experience, may I come back to this motivation not to harm. Yeah, may I try to be of benefit. Yeah, may I try my best to remember my human potential to become awakened. Yeah, so that's another thing. Instead of just following the feeling or fighting it or getting upset or having all these afflictive emotions, to relate to our feelings in a different and more realistic way. And I think that's helpful, especially if we're experiencing a lot of pain, physical pain or mental pain. I think that's where sometimes some of the acceptance piece can come in, knowing that it's impermanent. Right? Yes, there's pain, and it will pass away. So I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm in pain, I get angry. I get angry at the pain, right? Like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. You're so unpleasant. Go away. Or what did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve this? We ask ourselves questions like that. And you have to ask yourself when you have those thoughts, are they helping? Or are they actually adding more fuel to the fire, right? I'm just adding to the anger. On top of the physical pain, I'm adding mental pain. So that's one great benefit of doing retreat or having a meditation practice where we learn to separate what is painful physically and what is painful mentally. And what, if I can calm down the mental part, then there's just physical pain. Yeah, it's not pleasant, but it's changing moment by moment. I can observe it moving throughout the body, and I can figure out how to relate to it differently. In the Tibetan tradition, we have teachings about expanding the mind to think about how we're not the only person experiencing that pain. Right? So that, once there's space, you can think, oh, I'm not the only one with a painful leg. Very often you sit in meditation and your leg goes to sleep, right? Like, well, everybody in the room is having that experience. You're not the only one. So it's okay. Right? And we can start to have some compassion, especially when we're sick, to think, I'm not the only person sick right now. Out of the 8 billion people on this planet, actually only a handful of us are in really good health. Right? When you think about it, right? A good portion of the planet is suffering with all kinds of illnesses without access to proper medical care. So when we can expand our mind like that, then it's not just focused on, I'm in pain, and I'm suffering. It's like, oh, others are in pain too. And how can I at least keep them in mind? Send loving thoughts to them or compassionate thoughts. May I be free of this pain. May you be free of this pain. And to see the effect that has on the mind. And so that takes us then to mindfulness of the mind itself. And in the Theravada tradition, I know it focuses a lot more on recognizing different mental states. And that's mindfulness of, oh, I'm angry, right? Oh, anger is arising. Sorry, not identifying with it. But noticing, oh, anger is arising, attachments arising. Or what's actually going on in the mind itself. Or observing, what is this thing I call the mind? It's formless, I can't see it, but it's part of my experience, right? It's changing moment by moment. And observing that. And that helps a lot with accepting who we are in every given moment. I think if the problem with the ideal that we set up, of ourselves or others as some kind of permanent, fixed, perfect person, or permanent, fixed, imperfect person, whatever it is you're working with, that is just not realistic. It's non-existent. Because when you observe your own body and your own mind, is it the same every moment? I mean, the person who came in the door just now and the person who's sitting here, are you the same? No, right? Right now your right leg hurts, maybe, In 5 minutes, the left leg hurts. And then 2 minutes, why is she talking for so long? My mind hurts. So you're constantly changing. When you try to focus on your breath, your mind is changing moment by moment. So which moment is you? Right? Who is this fixed, permanent person you're trying to pin down? So that's what the mindfulness of the mind can help us to explore. And it frees us up, especially if we're too fixated on an identity, I think. Yeah, sometimes you observe your mind, I'm such an angry person. Really? Are you angry all the time? Every single moment from waking to sleep? That's not possible, right? Right? Can it be? Yeah, or say, oh, I'm such a jealous person. Really? Yeah. So it helps us to free ourselves up from that when we can reframe it and say, okay, those are just states of mind. They arise, they pass away. Yeah, they're not permanent. But same for love and compassion, right? Oh, I'm loving in one moment, but how do I sustain that? Yeah, causes and conditions come about and it changes. Yeah. So that helps us to develop a more realistic view of both our body and mind, I think. Yeah, to see, oh, it's impermanent, it's shaped by causes and conditions. Yeah, the body is not some pleasant, wonderful thing, but it gets sick, it ages. I need to have a realistic view of myself in that way. Likewise, my mind, it's impermanent, sometimes unstable. One moment it's thinking this, the other it's thinking that. Yeah. What can I expect of myself on a day-to-day basis? Yeah. And I think that's where then finally the mindfulness of what's called phenomena comes into play. Yeah. So here phenomena, we're talking about both mental and physical phenomena. There are many different lists of what constitutes phenomena, but we're talking about what we call the different aggregates, so forms in the physical environment, feelings that we experience, all the different mental processes. And that's what we start to pay attention to. We pay attention to what we're perceiving. Yeah. And the most important thing is that on that basis, we think about what brings happiness and what brings suffering. And then we start to cultivate the causes for happiness and to give up the causes for suffering. Yeah, so that's where the mindfulness of phenomena comes in. So, you can check up what brings happiness in your day-to-day experience. Does anger bring happiness? Does thinking a certain way bring you happiness or not? Does harming people bring you happiness? Does wishing your enemies to have all the suffering in the world and may their children also suffer, does that bring you happiness when you have such thoughts? Right? Or does letting go of your anger, releasing that, forgiving people, does that bring happiness? Yeah. So of course, there's what you expect from a nun, right? Like, what's she going to tell you? There's a standard answer. But the important thing is that you check up in your own experience. That's what the Buddha said. Don't take what I taught at face value, but check it up. Yeah, the Buddha taught that the fundamental cause of happiness is ethical conduct. Refraining from harming others, not killing, not stealing, not lying, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not engaging in harsh speech, idle talk, not coveting, not having animosity toward others. Yeah, okay, so I can name that list, but in my own experience, do I know it's true or not? And that's something for all of us to check up on. Because for sure you have the mind that tells you, if I just take that and nobody knows, I will be so happy, right? I will have it. Yeah? Nobody knows what. I just take on. Yay! Happy. Yeah. Really? When you sit with it, do you feel good about yourself? And what if you knew that taking something brought, inconvenience to others? Even if it's something small, right? If it harmed others? Or what if it causes you to lose your things in the future? Yeah, when others take things without your permission and you feel upset, right? So we start to observe on the day-to-day level, what brings happiness and what brings suffering, and to really test out the teachings that way. Yeah. So that's how I've been practicing with this whole question of self-acceptance, both on the day-to-day level of looking at the thoughts I have about myself and what I think are true or not true and real or not, and then trying to apply that too with the 4 establishments of mindfulness in this very basic way, just looking at how I relate to my body, how I relate to feelings, how I relate to the things that are arising in my mind, and to check up realistic or beneficial or unrealistic and unbeneficial, and making choices based on that about how I wish to go about my day. And that's a practice that I found quite helpful. And it's slow. Like I told you, I'm still part of the high achiever neurotics But I have seen some growth in the last 10 years personally, and things to rejoice in. And so far so good. I am still fairly happy most of the time. happy with the choices I've made. And when not happy, then there are ways to work with it. Yeah. So I think I've said enough for now. I wanted to leave some time for questions and comments or responses or yes buts or if buts and so on. Yes? Oh, she's there. Yeah.
Hi. My name is Evelyn. Thank you so much for sharing. Isn't self-acceptance fundamentally self-love?
Thank you for phrasing that way. Yeah, I would think so. Well, let's think about it. Self-love. I think it's one step towards self-love, maybe.
I teach positive life skills. I'm a transformative life coach, so I teach all that you just shared in a secular way. So I would actually place it as self-acceptance first as the base, and then self-appreciation, and then right at the top is self-love. So self-love encompasses appreciation and then acceptance.
Yes, I would agree with you. Yeah. But maybe where the Buddhist piece comes in then, right, I don't know if that's part of your question, is the definition of love. Right? So here the Buddhist, the way I understand it, the Buddhist definition of love is the wish for yourself and others to have happiness and its causes. Yeah. And then when we talk about a long-term view involving rebirth or things like that, then the idea of happiness and its causes becomes much broader. Yeah, so beyond one lifetime, you know, because, yeah, happiness is not just about material comfort in this moment, but also about inner experience, and not just for one lifetime, but for multiple lifetimes. Yeah. So that's when we have the most expansive view of what happiness means. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, the gentleman in the back.
Yep. Just now you said about the reflecting daily on what are the things that can make you happy and unhappy. And for the things that make you happy, I mean, I think the examples that you quoted were always something that you do or something that you think. But what if when you reflect and the things that make you happy are, say for external ones, say your first boyfriend mail your message, or you receive a work email that makes your work easier. So what if it's really more external driven events that make you happy instead of internal ones?
So your question is, so if that's what comes up? Okay. So maybe how I respond is, one of the meditations we do in our practice at the Abbey is called "The Mind is the Source of Happiness and Pain." Yeah, and that's actually at the center of a lot of the Buddha's teachings, and it comes from the beginning to the end, that the source of happiness and pain is actually the mind. So that's something interesting for you to check up on, like, oh, you think it's that email that made you happy, right? Then you ask, really? Is there happiness in the email itself? I mean, if you printed it out and you cut it up into pieces, can you find where that happiness is? Yeah. If you printed out that work email and you gave it to me, is it going to bring me happiness? No, right? I'm like, who is this? It's a piece of paper. Yeah. So there's no happiness in that email per se. Yeah. What was the other example you gave?
Your loved one message you back.
Okay. If my boyfriend messaged me, oh yay, very happy. If my boyfriend messaged the same message to her, will I be happy? No, right? Like, how come you message her? Right, but it's the same message. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that in and of itself, in that object, the happiness is not there. Right? There's so many causes and conditions when we expand it. There's me, the other person, yeah, physically, externally, but also my mind plays a role in all of this, how I'm perceiving it. Oh, it's a message from someone who loves me and cares for me. Yeah, if if the message came from a different person, a stranger, saying all those things my boyfriend, I'm wanting to hear from my boyfriend, it's like, oh, creepy, call the police, right? Like, who is this? Yeah, same words, right? But again, there's the social context, and then there's also our mind. And so that's what we're interested in when we meditate or in the Buddhist, when we explore the Buddhist teachings. What role is my mind playing in all of this? How much of this is generated by my perception and my thoughts and my conceptions? And if it's causing me mental suffering, then I can shift the way I'm seeing the situation. Yeah? So, I mean, I'll give you another example that was very shocking to me as a layperson back then. But, you know, I remember Venerable Chodron giving a talk about attachment. And she said, you know, if your boyfriend or girlfriend were really so attractive, the way you see them, every single person should see them the same way, right? Right? If the attractiveness is inherent in that person, everybody should be in love with them, what? Not just me. And I'm like, huh? How can that be? Yeah, they are perfect. What do you mean? You know, but it's true. I don't want everybody to love them the same way, right? Yeah. I realized, oh, that's true. Other people have a different perception of this person. Yeah? Some people like them, some people don't. And of course, once we broke up, I hate them. They're a pig. Yeah? What? You know, all my friends that time were like, Hiya, you were with the pig for so long. I'm like, oh, how could you say that? You know, I'm like, oh no. Yeah? But so you see, who is that person? Yeah? That I'm so in love with them and other people think they're awful. So they're not some fixed entity, and am I perceiving them accurately? Yeah, that's the real question we're asking. You know, how do I perceive this person realistically? So no, they're not perfect, and they have faults, and then how do I relate to them? And I think that's the key to a happy marriage, no? Yeah, I mean, you go through the honeymoon, and at some point you have to recognize your faults and the person's faults, and you have to figure out how to work it out realistically. No? Yes? Married people? Right? No, they're not. So, you know, they're not princess or Prince Charming, and they're not a pig either. It's something else, and I'm relating to them day to day, right? Sometimes we have arguments, sometimes we make up, sometimes we don't talk for a while, and, you know, and you're working it out. Yeah, and that's how a realistic view of a relationship is. It's hard work. No? I think all relationships are hard work in that sense. We have to actively cultivate love and compassion for each other. It's not some magic thing that appears from the sky. Yeah, we have to create the causes for good relationships. So I think that's where the teachings are helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I just really want to thank you for sharing. I feel like it's very insightful in a way that I just feel very relatable to. Like, I relate to it a lot because I go through that same process of having expectations and not meeting them, and then making some progress, and then backsliding, and then I'm like, what? Right. So my question is more of what if, or I should say, do you have any tips on being able to rejoice more on like small achievements? You know, I think specifically maybe on, you know, the spiritual journey of being more self-accepting, and yeah.
So I have two ideas, and one maybe already Evelyn teaches as well, right? To have a gratitude, a practice of gratitude or rejoicing, and actively do that. At the end of the day, sit down and think of 3 things you rejoice in that day. You know, and 3 is an arbitrary number. Once we set the number, I can't even think of 3. What a bad day. It's like, no, please, okay? Okay, however many you want. Just taking 5 minutes. Like, oh, I did this on time. Yay! You know, as opposed to, I was late for all the other things, right? Or, oh, I took time to be kind to an animal. You know, there was a bug trying to cross the floor and I removed it. I saved a life. You know, not important to me in the scheme of my whole day, but super important to the bug, right? Like no one stepped on it. Yeah, so yeah, taking out that time to actively rejoice or to actively be grateful oh, today some people said something nice to me. And it was nice. It was true. Oh, that's good. And that's good enough. Yeah, because how much time do we instead spend on, today somebody criticized me and I can't believe they said that, and you're there, I can't believe they said that. And next time I see them, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to tell them, like, stop, right? Instead, oh, somebody said something good. Yeah. And it's not an easy practice. We had, for a while, our community trained with what's called a nonviolent communication trainer. Yeah, and one practice, so we were asking, how do we cultivate harmony in the community? And the trainer actually said, put 5 small stones in your pocket, and one pocket, we have no pockets as monastics, but we wear jackets too. So she said, and every time you notice something positive in the community, move the stone from one pocket to the next. Yeah, and just use that to remind yourself to pay attention to good things that are happening. The scientific thinking behind this is that, as humans, we are wired to look for threats, right, for survival. Yeah. So actually practicing the opposite when we're safe. Yeah. Now we're largely in an environment where, you're not trying to kill a woolly mammoth for survival or, things like that. We're largely in a safe environment. So instead of looking for the threat and the harm all the time, to change the conditioned response to what's going well. Oh, this is going well in our community. Let's point that out to someone. Let's move a stone from my pocket from one to the next. Some small physical reminder like that. I can tell you it was so hard for us. And then she said, okay, after you go from moving stones, tell someone when they've done something well. It's like, but we live together, it's so awkward. It's like, you wash the dishes very well? I don't, at first it feels very contrived. Yeah, but it's like it's just a helpful practice, right? And then over time it becomes natural. It's like, hey, thanks for coming on time for meetings all the time. It really helps. Yeah. Instead of like, 2 of you are always late. Meh, meh, meh. Yeah. So we're practicing the opposite and in a sincere way, of course. We're not trying to butter people up. Yeah, just to point out, these are things that are going well, and so that helps us. Then it helps the community around us. Yeah, so I think that's one way to have an active practice of rejoicing. Yeah. Venerable Chodron's teacher, Lama Yeshe, also said one of the things he always told his students was, good enough, dear. Good enough, dear. And we have that on all the mirrors at the Abbey. Good enough, dear. Yeah, and to say that to yourself, good enough, dear. But what's helped me a lot is Venerable Chodron saying, be content with creating the causes. That's kind of her. Be content with, I don't know how many, but like a helpful, short slogan, So I have all my expectations, my dreams, my aspirations, but you know what? Be content with creating the causes. Yeah, if I believe in karma, if I believe that being generous now brings about causes for my support for my spiritual practice later, then just be content with having created that cause. Good enough. I don't need to see the result immediately, here and now. But you know what? I had a good motivation. I was generous. I know it will bring good results next time. But you know what? It's already benefited other people. Good. Rejoice. Yeah, and be content with that. And I see that really helps when you have a very long and big project that you might think is impossible sometimes, right? You're like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Then start small, one step at a time. One time, Venerable was teaching a text called 108 Gems of Wisdom, something like that. And back then, I was like, 108? How is she ever going to finish teaching this? She was giving 5-minute talks on it, short talks, every day. And I don't know, my short-term thinking, like, 108. Oh. And she spends 3 talks on one gem we're never going to finish. But she did. 5 minutes a day, bit by bit. After 1 year, she finished the text. I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. One small step at a time, and you just keep going. You rejoice, you create the cause. Oh, I finished this, the next thing, and it adds up. Yeah, like drops of water in a bucket. Eventually, the bucket gets full.
May I share one way to just...
Yeah, thank you.
So regardless of whether I have a good day or a bad day, at the end of the day, I just simply do this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a friend of the Abbey. His name is Bobby Sweetheart. I don't think he will mind telling us that because he went through a lot of difficulties and had an eating disorder for quite a while and was self-harming and I think, weight issues. And his practice was, because he hated his body so much, just learning. And that's why he started calling himself Bobby Sweetheart. Yeah, I'm a sweetheart. I'm worth loving. I can love myself. Doesn't matter what I look like. Yeah, and I will speak to myself kindly. So that's been his practice. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Venerable, for your talk. It's wonderful. I'm just wondering how is it like in your abbey, because I hear you talk about having this, not everybody is in the Achievers Club. Because I was wondering, does everybody enjoy serving others? Because I have the observation of people that there are people who are achievers, that they're born with this kind of characters that they like to achieve. So maybe there are some people who are born to be they love to serve people. And the achievers tend to take serving as an objective, and then to take it as I have to serve, this is my objective, and then I achieve this. So I'm asking this is because I'm very fascinated how you can stay together with different kinds of people, and then I'm sure there'll be people who are I just want to be by myself. Yeah. So is it that everybody will do you like to serve basically is that
Yeah, I get your question. Oh yes, Abbey is a pure land. Everybody goes there and they just want to serve, and everybody is happily washing dishes 3 times a day. No, yeah, I mean, in a monastery, living together in community is the training. Yeah, but to back up, I wanted to say, we come into each life with our past habits. Right? We might have strong dispositions from previous lifetimes, but so I wouldn't, when you say you're born with the wish to achieve or born with the wish to serve, it sounds so inherent almost. Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that piece, right? That so much of it is also conditioning. Yeah, what your parents tell you is valuable, what your friends tell you is valuable. Yeah, so you have those, so it's many, many different pieces coming together. And so yeah, we all go to the monastery with certain, again, same thing. You have your ideal about what the monastery should be like and what it's supposed to be like. Everybody should be meditating at all times, floating in the air, or whatever it is. And it never is that way. Honestly, the first time I visited the Abbey for 2 weeks, after that I was like, I can't live here. Because we work really hard. Yeah, it's a monastery that's just starting. So back then, I was nun number 10. So the other 9 were older, and these nuns are twice my age and more fit. They're working. I mean, I'm from Singapore. And I don't work outside. I don't know. Go to the gym half an hour. It's like okay, it's enough. Yeah, we're working in the forest 2-3 hours a day. I remember Venerable Children used to be super active. She's working. She loves working outdoors. Yeah, and I'm like, I can't keep up with her. I'm so ashamed. Yeah. There was one day where we worked really hard in the forest and then went to shovel concrete after that because we were building a hut. Yeah. Auntie Jean has come before. She knows what it's like at the Abbey. Yeah. The concrete truck came and I'm like, you want me to shovel concrete? Like, no! Yeah. So after that I thought, okay, U-turn, better go somewhere else or do something else altogether. So it takes time to cultivate the mind that wishes to serve. And it's a huge part of our training. Everybody comes with the self-centered thought at some level. Yeah. What am I going to get out of this place? I'm here to meditate. This place is for my practice. Why you ask me to do things for other people? Like to support other people's practice? Why? So we watch those thoughts come up. And then in community, we learn how to work with them. Yeah, Venerable gives talks about it. And we are transparent. We work it out. We talk about it as well. So yes, there are the people who because you have an achieving mindset, you bring that into your service, and then where does that get you, right? Oh, the service becomes another thing to check off the list. You get tired, yeah. Oh, it's just another thing to do. Yes. But then, once you notice that, then you can shift your motivation, right? You don't have to be like, oh, I'm so bad, I have these thoughts. Yeah, it's like, oh, let's come back to what's a pure motivation for serving? What could that look like? How does that feel right now? How can I do this task without needing any applause? You know, I'm just putting firewood in a pile. Does it need to be perfect? No one's going to come and tell me A+ for the firewood, right? Yeah, no one's going to come and clap, right? But it feeds the furnace. It's going to heat it's going to heat the room for the rest of the winter. It benefits everyone in the room. So of course, I want to do that. Yeah. Also, we've had all kinds of funny experiences where one time we ran out of firewood. So in the middle of winter, we're going out into the hill to dig for the logs on the hill. I thought, okay, we need to do this earlier. So, you just see causes and conditions, right? When one thing doesn't go well, it affects everyone in the community. And so you naturally want to do things that benefit the people you live with. Yeah. But it takes time, slowly. So like you said, you apply that in your daily life, or especially if you're in a Dharma organization, right? How come the whole EXCO is not like, I just want to serve? Yeah, we come to EXCO meetings and people have arguments. Like, are these people Buddhist or not? Right? Yeah, okay, laughter, because I'm guessing we've all had those thoughts, right? Where it's like, well, Buddhists are not Buddhas. Yeah, we're all still practicing, but now the difference is we take our service as part of our Dharma practice. We learn to apply the antidotes, or we relate to each other and the conflicts that arise, hopefully in a different way. Right? We can see, okay, there's anger coming up. Wow, this is affecting the relationship between me and the other members. Yeah, how do I calm my mind? Yeah. Or if someone's really in a lot of pain, how do we hold some space to support them when they're in pain? And how do we find ways to heal our group later on? Yeah, so those are real ways we have to put the Dharma into practice. Yeah. And I see that in community, so it's not easy. People come and go, people have their ups and downs, but because it's a monastic community, we have confidence that everyone is really trying to practice and transform their mind. Nobody comes to the monastery to get free food, or to harm others. Yeah. So the same thing I would hope applies in our Dharma organizations. Yeah. No one's joining to get rich. Yeah. How famous can you get in the EXCO? Or, and to come back to that motivation, if we're really here to try and serve and benefit the group, how can we work with our afflictions to accomplish that goal together? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, last question. Yes.
A very good day to Reverend Chodron.
Damcho.
Damcho, thank you very much for your experience shared. Rihanna, how do you calm down the anger that comes up to your mind at random? The anger could be someone that you're close to, your family members. Because I find it more easy to forgive somebody who are sometimes not blood related, no?
So here, so you're asking how to work with...
It's easier to forgive friends.
Sorry?
More easier to forgive friends. Yeah, I realized. Thank you.
Oh, easier to forgive your friends than family members.
Yeah,
sometimes. Well, so Venerable has a book called Working with Anger. There are really so many methods to deal with the anger that comes up with all kinds of different situations, so I would highly recommend that book. I've read it many times. Sometimes, I don't know about you, I was very embarrassed to read that book at first, in public. It's like, I don't have a problem with anger. Here is this book, Working with Anger. It's like, cannot read on the bus, Everybody thinks I have anger problem. But no choice, right? It comes up. Yeah. I had so much anger come up in one retreat where I think I was like reading 3 books about it and crying in the library at the same time. Why? How do I work with this? Yeah, so I'm giving this example to say you are not alone. Yeah. So how do you work with it? You just have to try these different antidotes. And when you're talking about a loved one specifically, I would guess that behind that anger is attachment. Yeah. With our loved ones, again, we have these very higher expectations that are unrealistic for them. Why? Because they're related to me. Yeah, they are an extension of me. Just now I just heard from a parent who's asking, why do I get so angry when my child, who is 6 years old, makes mistakes in math? Yeah, she's 6, right? And the parent is an accountant, I think. So, yeah, correct. So she said, wow, 6 years old, the child changed the plus to the minus by mistake, and she can feel, how come? And she has thoughts like, are you really my daughter? Yeah. Just one small thing, right? Plus to minus. I mean, at least she's honest, yeah? Things like that come up, right? She's like, I'm an accountant. How can I have a child who can't count? You know? And she feels like crying in that moment, she said. I thought, wow, that's very honest and observant, yeah? But yeah, so to observe that and to see, when you can calm it down, to see what are all the expectations and unrealistic thoughts going on, right? The child of an accountant must be good at math. My child, if it's not good at math, is not my child. Right? You know? So things like that. It's like, this is totally illogical. But once you have those thoughts about the people, because they reflect on you, right? Your reputation depends on your child doing well in math. Yeah? Where will I put my face if my 6-year-old child fails one maths test? I will be fired from my job as an accountant. I don't know. Yeah, all these thoughts that go on. And to see, oh, that's what's driving the anger. That's what's making me lash out at them suddenly, like you said. It just comes up, yeah? Because there's attachment to this person and how they reflect on me. Yeah? And to see, oh, it's actually driven by my self-centered thought. Yeah? It's actually not love and care for my child, right? Or love and care for the person that I call my loved one, right? Yeah. So again, don't feel guilty that these thoughts come up. Yeah? Just notice, okay, it's there. And to pause and to see, behind those thoughts, there is a cause. And the cause of that is possibly attachment, unrealistic ways of thinking. And if you can identify the cause, then you're able to change it. You can actually shift the way you think. Yeah? And then you are empowered. Do you know what I mean? So the anger doesn't run your life anymore. If you can sit down and pause and really look at that and rethink that, then there's the space for your mind to change. And that's what we do a lot in meditation. At least, the way we're taught to practice at the Abbey, we practice with a lot of these daily life situations, things that come up. It's like, wow, I live with this is my roommate, and boy, they just tick me off, you know. And to bring that to the cushion, to look at the situation in a meditative state. What did they do exactly? Why do I have these thoughts about them? Where is it coming from? And then to check against the Buddha's teachings. Is there attachment? Is there anger? Is this my self-centered thought? Yeah, then once you identify it, then you can, what are the antidotes? Oh, how do I cultivate love for my irritating roommate? Yeah, or how do I cultivate a realistic view of what's happening now? Yes, and then you apply the teachings that way. Yeah, then the Dharma really comes alive for us and actually has effects in our day-to-day interactions. Yeah. Okay, well, we've really gone over time, so I think it's time to come to an end. All right, very last question.
Thank you. Okay, just now you mentioned about dealing with another person, but would be a personal issue that I'm facing is what if it is a big mistake you yourself committed and you can't get over it? Any things in extra we should do to ourselves?
How to forgive ourselves. That's actually a very important practice too. I would say in terms of the Buddhist meditative practices, one is called the 4 opponent powers, and that's a purification practice. So I can explain that as briefly as I can. So first of all, you recognize you've made a mistake, right? And you just generate a sense of regret. Okay, so this is really important that you recognize it and you just regret it. And regret here is just knowing I did something that was not beneficial. Maybe it harmed someone else, I can see the result, or it harmed me too, and I just see that, yeah? Because when you say I've done, a terrible mistake, yeah, just even that word, yeah, terrible, right? There might be exaggeration going on, right? There might be guilt involved. So you're first of all learning to distinguish, when you regret your mistake, you're not beating yourself up. That brings you no joy and doesn't help at all. You're just sitting there adding anger to the situation. Yeah, I'm so bad. I made this mistake. It's the worst mistake. It's terrible. That does not help. Okay? So when you catch yourself doing that, like, stop it. Just try to just cut it, put it down. Yeah? You recognize your mistake. It's like, I picked up a pot that's very hot. Of course I put it down. Right? I'm not going to keep holding the pot that's burning my hand, right? But I'm not going to feel guilty about picking up the pot. I didn't know it was hot, right? I picked it up, I put it down. Yeah, so that's the first step, recognizing what you did, looking at it clearly, and just regretting it simply because you know it has no benefit to you or others. All right. Then next, you want to restore your relationship with the beings you have harmed. Okay, and that can happen mentally. First of all, you just try and generate a sense of love and compassion towards them. Yeah, so if you are a Buddhist, you can generate bodhicitta toward the being you have harmed, thinking, I want to become awakened for your sake. Or sometimes if it's you've turned away from the three jewels in some way by, breaking your precepts, then you generate a sense of refuge. You think, I really want to follow the Buddha's teachings. Yeah. So, on a secular level, you're restoring the internal relationship with yourself and others. I've harmed them, but I am capable of love too. Yeah? So in your meditation, you send love, compassion to the beings you may have hurt, right? Or you think about the Buddha sending light into you and the other beings, right? So you start to restore that relationship. You think, I want to do my practice to benefit you. Instead of harming you, now I want to benefit you. Okay. Then you make a resolve not to do this action again. Yeah. So you can, for a realistic period of time, that's the important thing. So maybe you made this mistake related to a family member, then you can resolve, okay, today when I see them, I want to say one positive thing, or I'm going to not say anything harmful in this situation for 1 hour. Okay, whatever it is that's realistic, don't promise to do something for the rest of your life when you can't, right? So you say, okay, I'm just not going to do this for this period. Yeah. And then when you notice that you accomplished it, rejoice. Yeah. To see, oh, I managed to not use harsh speech in a very difficult family gathering. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so that's the third. Yeah, you make a resolution not to repeat it. And the fourth is to do some actual remedial action. Yeah. And here, so depending on whatever it is you're trying to purify, it could be specific to the relationship. You might apologize to that person. You might write a letter to that person if they're not around anymore. If it's needing to heal a relationship with yourself, you forgive, you do some remedial action to, facilitate that forgiveness. So it could also be volunteering, contributing to a charity. Yeah, if you're trying to purify harming animals, then you might volunteer with the 𝑆𝑒𝑐𝑐𝑒, for example. Or you might do something active in your own meditation practice, like visualizing the medicine Buddha sending light to beings in pain, and so on. So there's a lot of space and creativity for this piece. But so basically, you are recognizing the harmful behavior and all the thoughts that caused it, and you're actively trying to transform it, yeah, through generating the opposite kind of thought, and then actually doing something in terms of an action, whether it's volunteering or through your own daily spiritual practice to counteract that. And so in that way, you do it every day slowly, then that's how it helps to purify the mistake that you've made. Yeah. And over time, you just let it go. You've forgiven yourself because you've recognized your mistake and you're taking steps to address it. So why beat yourself up, right? Yeah, you can forgive yourself. There's no need to be angry with yourself when you've recognized what's wrong and you've moved on and you're learning from it and you're becoming a better person. And so instead, that's something to really, really rejoice in. Yeah. Okay, so we've really used our time. Thank you all for listening. So let's take a moment just to come back to our breath and do a little bit of what's called digestion meditation. And again, let's just really rejoice that we all spent this time together reflecting on ways to cultivate beneficial ways of thinking about ourselves, about others in our lives, and how to apply these teachings in our daily lives. And think about one thing you heard in the discussion or in the talk that you might be able to put into practice. And so now rejoicing in all the positive energy and what we call merit that we've all generated with our time together this afternoon, we can visualize all of that positive energy as light at our heart and just visualize sending it out to the entire universe. You can bring to mind specific people or beings that you want to send positive thoughts to. You can also send love and compassion to parts of the world that are in distress. And so just generating this wish that whatever benefit that we derive from our time together today, we'll send it on and use it to bring more love, compassion, and goodness and wisdom into the world. So we'll dedicate the merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, and that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Venerable Damcho. Let's pay respects to the Triple Gem and then Venerable Damcho. Maybe we just do the Arahant. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namah. Let's pay respects to Venerable. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I have a couple of announcements, and also those who like to donate to Sravasti Monastery for their building of the Buddha Hall or something, you're welcome to go forward and pass Venerable and Ang Pao, or if you wish, or you can drop it in the donation box outside.
Thank you so
Announcements?
much, Eileen.
Yes.
I have money pills if people want them.
For those who like to accept money pills, in the Tibetan tradition, you are also welcome to go forward and accept them?
Yeah. These are pills that people have recited a lot of mantras over, and there are instructions in here about how to use them. And so if you have health difficulties or you just want to use it to support your practice, you can put it in water and drink the water, or you can take the pill and visualize light from the Buddha of compassion coming into you. So yeah, you're welcome to come forward and take them. Yep.
Okay. Next Sunday, we have Brother Tan Beng Hock. Do come and sit with us all together for Meditation Sunday. And then you can ask questions about your sitting to Brother Tan. And please remember, BF will be closed from 21st to 25th January for Chinese New Year. Please do not turn up on that Sunday from 21st to 25th. Okay. Thank you, everybody. See you all next week.